Episode 1 and 2 have finally dropped for Prime Video's The Rings of Power, and today we will be breaking down both episodes and also going through some Easter eggs as well. Without further ado, let's get right into it. We start off with a young Galadriel, played by Emily Chard-Villiers, and the purpose of this scene here is to foreshadow the decision she has to make when sailing west, which we get at the end of the first episode. Then we have Finrod, played by Will Fletcher, who is now confirmed to be the person indeed walking up the hill in the first promo pic we got, and then we see him whisper something to Galadriel, which we'll get back to later on and she will also remember later on. Kind of similar to this scene in The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo, before stepping on the boats, remembers the words of Gandalf from Khazad-dum. Here we see the city of Tirion destroyed after the two trees, and then a battle commences in Morgoth's defeat, which is of course an immense simplification and reworking of the first stage. But here we have Finrod at this scene with the other elves, either making a pledge or even an oath, and of course in the Oath of Feanor, Finrod wasn't there and it also happened on a hill, so maybe this is just a culmination of multiple events. A hint to the death of Finrod at the hands of Sauron, with the scratches on his arm maybe from a werewolf, and we also have the mark of Sauron on his chest. Could this fortress be a Tumno? We get a hint of the troll watching them when they enter the fortress before he attacks them in this next scene. This scene of the Harfoots at this farm is reminiscent of Merry and Pippin in Farmer Maggot's crops in The Lord of the Rings. However, we see the wolves in the Second Age for the first time, but it was already mentioned by the Nobad creatures here and part of Sauron's section of the prologue, so they have popped up quite a lot already, and it isn't the last time we see them in the episodes, so maybe these wolves are connected to Sauron's presence somehow, even though he's not physically there, maybe even an omen. Finally, we get our first look at Elrond, who is writing Gil-galad's speech, which is made clear when he's reciting it in this scene here, and we see on his mantle a miniature piece of the city of Gondolin, which is a hint towards his lineage, which he is clearly proud of. Could this be a hint to Erendil and the Silmaril in the sky? We get a Grey Havens name drop here, so it's nice to have confirmation of the elven coastal city. One of the best moments of the first two episodes is Galadriel at the statue of Finrod, her brother, and many other first stage legends, including reference to Luthien and Huan, which was a nice touch. Interestingly, in this tavern, this human villager is executive producer Justin Doble, so there is a nice little cameo there from the production team. Here, Ian Blackburn's character states, quote, "One day our true king will return," and the first of a few mentions of the supposed king in Teherad. In this conversation between Arondi and Simon Morell's elven character, we get a divisive discussion of whether or not the Southlanders are still evil, or if their evil went a long ago with their ancestors, which seems to be an important theme in these first episodes. The cow squirting out black blood is a sign that orcs have returned. How this mechanically works is anyone's guess. An interesting mountain is at the back of this shot here, behind the farm, which has interestingly the sword with the Sauron mark on it, which Theo finds. So maybe this might be a hint that this is in fact Ordurin, due to the coincidental nature between the sword being so close to the mountain which is right behind. Here is one of the biggest discussions of the first episode: who is Theo's real father? One option is of course Halbrand, because Bronwyn even mentioned that she knew a lot of friends from Horden Village, and Halbrand is from there, mixed in with the fact that Halbrand is running from his past, so maybe he left his past life behind, which included Bronwyn and Theo. Another possibility could, funnily enough, be Adar, because clearly Bronwyn has a thing for elves. And interestingly, we haven't seen the ears of Theo yet, as it is hidden under his bowl haircut. Here we can see visibly the mark of Sauron on the sword. Celebrimbor is introduced here and doesn't speak because he was digitally placed here, because this scene between Elrond and Gil-galad was actually shot when Tom Budge was still Celebrimbor. These constellation markings will be called back to later on, but then the episode starts to tense up when we see Horden Village burnt alive, probably by none other than the man himself, actually should be saying elf himself, Adar. Here is where we get into heavy speculation territory, because when Galadriel and the elven boat pass in the Sundering Seeds and the clouds move, and then we almost see them pass some sort of a physical barrier, and the gateway to Valinor, to get into Valinor, is now open. And then a second later, after this gateway opening, we see in the sky Meteor Man flying across. So maybe is this a hint, a little Easter egg, that Meteor Man came from Valinor and only came now at this specific moment, since the gates to go into Valinor was open by Galadriel's ship passing through it. Then finally the episode ends on Meteor Man's arrival and Eleanor Nori Brandyfoot discovering him. Now moving on to episode 2, we finally see the opening credits with the music composed by Howard Shore, with grains of sand making different symbols alongside the episode 1 recap. In the sky, we see a bit of the constellation from Sadok's book, which resulted in Meteor Man's arrival. Interestingly, the fire around Meteor Man is not hot but cool, similar to how the One Ring was in The Lord of the Rings. We see Horden village absolutely destroyed, but with no bloodshed or bodies on the floor, as if the entire village was captured and taken somewhere, maybe to Adar. We finally see a Region and then reference to Feanor's hammer, but more interestingly we see Celebrimbor's desire to build a great forge and tower. Maybe this is the beginning of the Great Imardine, and interestingly he wants it done by the next spring. Maybe there's something bigger happening behind the scenes in a region that we don't have full disclosure to yet. We finally enter Khazad-dum and see the dwarves at work, and Elrond's attention especially gazes towards where the dwarves seem to be mining for something specific. Maybe Mithril? After looking in the direction, the dwarven guard actually pushes him forward, telling him to continue. Could this be a hint that they don't want him looking at whatever they are doing there? On the rocks, we see this rune, which is similar to Gandalf's in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but just reversed. And then Meteor Man chants Mana, which means blessed, and then Ura, which it means heat, so he is saying blessed heat. Then we finally see Halbrand, who very interestingly says, quote, "The tides of fate must be flowing, yours may be heading in or out," which just adds to the mysteriousness around the character. Then to increase the mysteriousness even further, he is the only character that survives when the worm attacks the ship. Maybe this is more than luck, time will tell. This intimate scene on the escalator between Durin and Elrond really shows the difference in longevity of life between the elves and the rest of the races, as 20 years is nothing for the elves, and especially for Elrond, but for Durin he had and created his own family, and this is hopefully going to be expressed even further between the Númenóreans and elves, which is a massive theme of the Second Age, because it creates and fuels the hatred for the Ban of the Valar by the Númenóreans. Galadriel mentions the necklace around Halbrand's neck, and again another mention of the king associated with the Southlanders when Galadriel asks who is Halbrand's king. But a closer look at this necklace and it seems like a hand grabbing a crown, so maybe Halbrand is this chosen king maybe? Also, maybe this pouch is similar to one of Bronwyn's pouches where she has all her potions, as they maybe even used to be together if we continue the Theo's father theory, but again is at this point really far-fetched. Arondir is exploring the Orc tunnels, which also now extends to Bronwyn's house, where her and Theo get attacked, but Bronwyn ends up killing the Orc, and the Southlanders leave whilst Arondir gets taken by some Orcs, and is probably how he ends up in that prison that we have seen in the trailers, and maybe we will see more of this in episode 3. One of the most interesting parts of episode 2 is Meteor Man with the Fireflies, which is similar to Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings when trying to contact the Eagles, as we see in this scene here. He creates the same constellation in the sky, and if relating back to our earlier theory, maybe he is referencing that he came westwards from Valinor, as that's the direction the constellation is pointing. It is going westward. But then the Fireflies die, while Meteor Man falls as if he is taken in or consuming the light of the Fireflies. We finally see Durin the Third, and then the main thing is what is in this box. Could it be Mithril in its final perfected form, which could potentially trigger this dinner scene that we will see in the next few episodes? We then at the end see someone pick up and save Halbrand and Galadriel, and most likely it's the Númenórean captain Elendil. But that is about it. Let us know what Easter eggs we missed out on. Also let us know your thoughts on the first 2 episodes as well, as they have been really divisive, but actually in the end it is quite exciting still that we are finally getting Middle-earth back on our screens, and the wait for this show has been so long. So we'll see you for episode 3, which premieres at 5 AM British Standard Time next week. So we won't be doing a watch party at 5 AM, we'll be doing it at the normal Council of Fans time slot. So you just moved it ahead a bit because most of us are going to need our sleep. But thank you guys for watching, we really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Until the next video, my friends, goodbye.